back here on the Early Edge, powered by SportsLine, sponsored by BetMGM. We'll get things started 5:00 p.m. Eastern time with the Rose Bowl, Alabama and Michigan. EC, Michigan, kind of a machine. There's not a lot of variance, like so predictable that they ran the ball 30 times in a row in one of the biggest games in the year. If you were to take Alabama's 2023 season and like grade them by how good they were to Alabama standards, I mean, it's just all over the place. I mean, they showed their best, they showed their worst, but they had their best at the right time going up against the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship. So how do we take the consistency of Michigan with the inconsistency of Alabama and apply it to our expectations for the Rose Bowl?
All right, so here's the way I look at this game, Chip. Alabama's season changed on one play. 4th and 31 against Auburn. The season is over if they lose that. You need a miracle, and they got it. And then things change. They come out the next week with their hair on fire, and they beat Georgia. So we're not talking about the Alabama team that we saw for the first 11 weeks and 58 minutes. We're talking about a different team, in my opinion. Jim Harbaugh, 0-6, straight up in his last 6 bowl games. I was at the Fiesta Bowl last year. I saw what they did against TCU. It was an absolute garbage defensive game plan. Nick Saban is the GOAT. There's no better coach in the history of college football than Nick Saban. And oh, by the way, he's won 6 straight college football playoff semis. How do you take Michigan here? Who is Michigan played? Outside of Ohio State, we talked about Penn State earlier. They're not that good. Who has Michigan played? What have you seen? I saw UNLV last night. Was that one of Michigan's better wins? They stunk. They gave up 200. Kansas had 200 billion yards of penalties, and they still lost. Kansas still covered the spread against UNLV. Sorry, but Michigan hasn't played anybody. Alabama's battle tested. I'm going with Alabama here. If I lose based on the numbers, I lose. Alabama 20, Michigan 17.
Emory?
This is simply boils down to who you trust more in a tight spot. Jalen Milroe or J.J. McPurdy, right? So I am taking Jalen Milroe because he has the ultimate X factor. At any point in time, he could take off and it'll be a house call. McCarthy, I think what happens to him and I think the reason why you saw a lot of people push back on J.J. McCarthy, I know it was split right down the middle. Some people's like he's a first-round pick, and some people's like, let's hold off a little bit. Because those people on that side of the fence where I stood just kind of still has that TCU game and those 2 out routes to the far hash fresh in our minds. Like, man, when you get pressured and that ball comes out late and behind, it is going back the other way. We know the way to stop Michigan is stop the run and make J.J. McCarthy beat you consistently throwing the football. Guess what Alabama is going to do? Despite not doing it great this year, they're going to stop Michigan's run because Michigan plays like how Alabama played when they just started that run. When they had the Eddie Lacy's and all those guys, they ran the ball, played good defense, and play action pass, timely shots downfield. This is going to be easier for them to stop. It's going to be a physical game. I may like the under here, but when you have a guy that's an explosive talent that handles the ball every play, I'm taking that guy 10 times out of 10.
Let's right there with you. I am also on Alabama here, and I think about the lack of defensive backs on Michigan's schedule who have that put their hands on you like Alabama does. Because Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, like Caleb Downs, comes down and mainly making stops in the run, but he's just a center fielder guarding everything over the middle. I just think that these Michigan wide receivers are going to have to work, and there's just not going to be any margin for error. I'm right there with you. I think that you see Alabama, first and foremost, make sure that they have the bodies to stop the run. But when it is time for J.J. McCarthy to take aim, he doesn't play a lot of secondaries that have what Alabama has in terms of physicality and overall skill. And I think that is just this Alabama defense is going to be the key. And I mean, you mentioned it. One of these coaches has not only lost 6 straight bowl games, but also not covered in 6 straight bowl games. And that'd be Jim Harbaugh. And like you also mentioned, DC, college football playoff semifinals And any situation since arriving at Alabama, when Nick Saban has a month to prepare, only one loss. All of those wins and only one loss. When that would be BCS national championship games and college football playoff semifinals. I just think that Alabama's going to have Michigan's number. And you know what? If they don't, sorry to go a little long here, but something happened in the SEC championship game. Remember, Georgia just marched it right down their throats on the very first drive. And you know what Nick Saban said? He's like, all right, boys, we're just going to play cover 2. Like, let's just let our players, the guys I just mentioned, and of course, like Dallas Turner on the outside, Braswell up front, we're just going to turn our guys loose and let them go play. He trusts his players. I mean, there's just no overcoaching with the greatest of all time. Yeah, give me Saban. I also like the under on that one as well. Then we go to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, a game that doesn't have it. I am excited for this one because it doesn't have all the weight, right? This is a football game between two really, really good football teams. Like, we don't have the Saban and Harbaugh and, like all this extra stuff. Like, let's kick it off and let's go see who can go make more plays, Quinn Ewers or Michael Penix Jr. Let's see who can go make more plays, whether it is the Texas wide receivers or whether it is the Washington wide receivers. What defense is going to show up? What offensive line is going to dominate? Are we going to see T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy bottle up this Washington ground game led by Dylan Johnson? Emory, what's your expectation here? How are you attacking what I think should be a very fun game in the Superdome on Monday night?
Yeah, I'm going right to where I've gone all show long, line of scrimmage. And that, to me, favors Texas. I feel like Texas has finally got it right on both sides of the ball. They look like the Texas of the Colt McCoy era, the Vince Young era in terms of point of attack play. They're strong right in the battery, center guard, D-tackle, backer, safety. That's where they're going to have control of this game. And again, Washington's defense, I need to know beforehand which Washington defense is going to show up. Because sometimes you may get the one that is ready to go and stop people, or you might get the one that just got together that day on Saturday and lined up 11 and went out there and just hope for the best. I think we'll see Texas be able to throw the ball deep against Washington, and we'll see them be able to collapse the pocket around Michael Penix, who's not the runner that other quarterbacks are. And I think in this game versus that defensive line's ability to smother, collapse the pocket around him, it'll make things very tough for Washington on a consistent basis. So I do like Texas. I'm laying the 4.
EC, what are you doing?
All right. So Chip, we're 40 minutes into the show and I have not mentioned my alma mater, but sorry, it's out the way. Listen, I saw Washington in person in Tucson on September 30th and they beat Arizona. They won by a touchdown and they really controlled the game. Michael Penix didn't have a touchdown. They had 4 rushing touchdowns. Washington was good. But if the Pac-12 had their old rules, in my opinion, Arizona beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. I have not been that impressed with the Huskies since midseason at most. The win over Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game was impressive. Remember, they should have lost the first time in Seattle. They're playing with house money. With that said, I think Texas is the better team. Plus, we have a revenge factor. From last year, Texas lost in this game to Washington in the Alamo Bowl, which, by the way, I'm picking my alma mater. You can check out that pick at SportsLine.
There you go.
I had to get it in. Last year, Washington won this matchup 27-20. Both of these offenses are legit, but let's not sleep on the defenses. Texas, 4th best in the nation against the run, giving up less than 81 yards rushing per game. So it's basically Michael Penix has to beat him, and that's that. It doesn't benefit in Texas for Texas to engage in a shootout. Been a great season for Washington, but I think it comes to an end against a more well-rounded team who owns, by the way, the best victory over a team all season in college football, that win in Tuscaloosa. Give me Texas 30, Washington 23, but I'm playing the under 63.5 as my top play in this game.
If we jump in a time machine and travel back maybe 5-6 years, and I'll tell you that Steve Sarkisian is the coach who was going to lead Texas to its first Big 12 title since 2009 and its best season since they were competing for national championships with Colt McCoy there, you wouldn't believe it. But Emory's right. It's at the line of scrimmage. He came out of that Alabama program and he said, I know what a team needs to look like. If I'm going to lead Texas into the SEC, we have to have difference makers on both sides of the ball at the lines of scrimmage. That is where this game will be won. I know that Texas is coming out of the Big 12, but to me, this is an SEC type team in a big game where they're just going to rely on the line of scrimmage, and that's where Texas is going to be able to win this thing. I think that Steve Sarkisian's done an incredible job with this program recruiting. I thought in the Big 12 title game, he was in his bag with those first 15 plays, just coming out with like everything perfectly scripted and ready to go. Him and Quinn Ewers on the same page. These are two incredible offensive coaches too. You know, Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian. You know, they're going to know each other's tendencies. It's going to be an amazing, amazing watch. But ultimately, Texas is the better team. They're better built along the lines of scrimmage. And while they had their own inconsistencies as well, I am going to go hook them for the Sugar Bowl.